Hey, everybody, welcome to another KPIs podcast. I am excited for today's podcast, recordings, and all the clips that are going to come from this. I have with me Aaron Corneail, who is Senior Business Intelligent Developer and Admin at AutoNation. Aaron and I met last year when I did a Move to Cloud panel at our Qlik Connect 2025, talking about customers that move from kind of Qlik On-Prem to Qlik Cloud, the success stories they had, any warnings they had. So Aaron, thanks so much for joining me today. Glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me. It was really nice. The Qlik Connect conference last year, we had a great time, and our presentation was well received. And it's basically what we're talking about today, I think, moving to the cloud. And I have even more good things happening here at AutoNation than I had last summer in May. So I'm excited to talk to you.
Awesome. And I have to say I'm honored. If you go to Aaron's LinkedIn, there's a picture of us on stage. It was a ton of fun. I think we were the first panel. Like there's multiple panels happening at the same time, but we were in that first slot. But great feedback afterwards, a line of people kind of lining up to talk to people. So again, it was great. Before we get into all that, tell me a little bit about AutoNation, the work that AutoNation does.
I'm in the marketing department of AutoNation. It's the biggest department here for obvious reasons. A lot of auto sales, most of it is in how well you market it. And we have our own data analytics team here in the marketing area. AutoNation is a little over 300 dealerships nationwide. We're a dealer group, and we're one of the biggest dealer groups in the country. And we've made some big strides using Qlik as opposed to other solutions. And we just moved to the cloud, which increased our usage by 300%. So it's been, and that was what I was touting last summer. Even more has happened since then.
Before we get into all the Qlik stuff, kind of just talk to me about why data is so crucial. I'd love to hear your take on that, how that kind of fits in with how AutoNation's approaching why data is so important.
Well, there's so many reasons, especially in the marketing department. Giving an example would be we take our data, we start out at a high level, and we drill down into granular information. And just a couple of weeks ago, we found that we were advertising the same VIN 200 times in the wrong markets. And so these kind of things, while they're minor from a cost perspective, obviously if we're not advertising the car that is in that market in the correct place, it's not going to sell. And so if you look at a high level reporting that doesn't get granular, you're not going to find those nuggets. They're just going to mix in with the aggregate. And so, that's been helpful. It's also one of the big things that we need to see is not just year over year information. We need trending. And Qlik allows us to load up in Qlik Cloud. It allows us to spool up years worth of data so that we can see long-term trends, which is a challenge that you have with other platforms. And so that's here in marketing. If we didn't have Qlik, we wouldn't be able to see how well Ford is doing on a 5-year trend in a particular region of our market, because you would literally have to come up with 10 Excel spreadsheets and do it that way. So and when you're in management, which that's what these feed the managers. The soldiers use it, but the management really uses it. And you don't need to be wading through a lake of information to find what you need. Qlik helps you with the trending and with the amount of data I can keep in there. It helps you see, spot, issues. And then by the same token, the soldiers that are using it, a soldier was responsible for their particular market, and they saw a problem with a VIN at a store. So it works for everybody. It works for the people that are responsible for little chunks of our business. And what's really important is it works for the decision makers in the company.
So again, I mean, we hear this all the time. I mean, because I sell this stuff, right? It's like, get data into the hands of everybody that you can, because everybody has their unique view of what they do, how they see things, and maybe thinking about it differently than someone else. So this example, management's looking at this, but this soldier, as you said, is noticed something. If that person didn't have that, they wouldn't have noticed that. But it's a specific thing that they were looking at their level that noticed something that affected the larger company, but the data was there to help surface that, to actually take action on it, fix things, and kind of move on. So that's awesome that what we say is actually happening and in practice when you give people access to the data, and a great tool to actually find those things out.
Yeah, it's been great. I like to compare it to, so we have analysts on our team. Well, as we add these soldiers, they become an analyst that is invested because they're responsible for that market or they're responsible for that store. Our analysts here at corporate, yeah, they're responsible for things, but they're not as invested in the actual minutia. So to me, it adds a whole army of soldier and army and a whole army of analysts out there, and they're even better because, like I said, they're invested. And that's what I can segue into some of the new things that are happening here. We just switched our user-based Qlik Cloud license to capacity-based to take advantage of Qlik Answers, and more importantly, to take advantage of unlimited user licensing. Because roughly have about 180 users, we are now adding in. Now, remember, we're in the marketing department, so we have nothing to do with operations really, but we've created such good dashboards and reporting that we are now adding operations in, and we are adding in our 12 market presidents and our almost 300 general managers, one for each store. And that way they can come into Qlik and they can see how we're marketing their store. And now I've got a soldier at the store that's going to check us and is going to say, hey, you know, you didn't spend enough on our email campaigns because last year we did this. Instead of looking at an aggregate, that person's a soldier out in the field. So we tripled usage, and now this year we're tripling users.
That's what we want. That tags on well to what I just said about getting it into the hands of the users. So the user-based model was how many users do you need? That's what you have. But now with the capacity model and kind of the way that I think just software in general is going is just put users into it. They're going to get value out of it if we train them and all that stuff. Give them access so that they can spot things that nobody else thought about. So that's
right.
Amazing. Is there plans to expand to other departments in the midst of that?
Well, we already did. So that was the other thing is we tripled usage, and then we started giving it to what I just labeled to you our soldiers. The market presidents are kind of they're a little higher up. We'll call them colonels. But we were already giving this as of shortly after the conference. We started giving it to the vice presidents and higher ups here at corporate, whether they were in the marketing department or not, and it's been incredibly well received. Especially, one of the hardest things to report on, and I'm sure people listening to this will relate, is website statistics. Google Analytics does a pretty good job. You're not going to replicate their dashboards, and you don't need to, because when you're trying to report on website, you need to marry it to internal data to see how the traffic translated into sales. And so, that's something that we've been able to do very effectively, and upper management now relies upon our Qlik website dashboard, is what we call it, to monitor the traffic on the site and to make sure that there's no bad links and there's no and our SEO team is marketing the right pages. And this wasn't happening prior to last year in an effective way, and it's made huge improvements. We're talking, anywhere from 20 to 80% increases in our traffic. And that's, you've got the Google tool and you can do some work with that. But if you're not able to connect that data into your internal system to see, you could get 1 million website hits all you want, but if they're not clicking on the button that takes them to the opportunity, and then in the very end they end up buying a car, you need to know that. You need to know I've got 1 million website visits that translated into 10,000 sales or 100,000 sales. Well, that'd be a lot.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, but
you got to follow the path. It's great we had 1 million clicks.
Yeah.
What good does that do if you don't know if it meant to the next step, to the specific website, to then somebody walked in the door, to all of those different things that we've set up to find out how people are moving through marketing, but with just this one tool that only shows this, and then this separate tool that shows this, and this separate source that shows this, it's all disparate, it's all different. You needed a tool to kind of pull those good things together into one thing and really map out that customer journey so that you know where to invest.
That's right. That's the biggest thing, is where do we invest? And that's what Qlik has really helped us with, and not just from a bird's eye level. And we're seeing the improvement. So now we're rolling it out to all the people in the field. And now we're not just going to be making improvements from a bird's eye level. We're going to be right down there, in the trenches at each and every store, which, we're a dealership group. So we're 300 dealerships. When you're a single dealer, it's kind of easy to focus on your data. It's kind of easier to focus on what marketing is working and this and that, because you're one single dealer. When you have 300 dealerships, and you can liken this to stores if you're a retailer or anything. It's not. It's going to be different at every dealership. It's going to be based on the demographics. It's going to be based on the area that they're in. You have to build your strategy around the whole, but you have to get down granular so you can compete with these one-off guys, because really they have more control over what's going on right at their store. So that's what we're getting at. We're getting right down to the store level, and we're taking control of it with our data. And we couldn't do it without the data.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So taking it back a few steps. So as I mentioned early on, kind of AutoNation was a longtime Qlik on-prem customer, right? Everything kind of sat in servers, be it virtual or not, sitting there. The decision was made to move to the Qlik Cloud. What were the key reasons for that? You already shared some of the reasons to move to the next version of cloud, but what were the key reasons to start on that move from on-prem to cloud?
The biggest thing, we like the new functionality, but the biggest thing was we lack control of our internal network. Our IT department has control, and we've tried to work through things, but when users would have trouble and we'd have trouble with certain plugins, it was all firewall issues. And it got to a point where our users had to start clearing their cookies on a regular basis just to access Qlik. And so, we're working with IT, and we find one problem and we stamp it out. But when we moved to the cloud, and that was, the main thing I told my boss, is all these problems will go away. It's their network. We're not going through our firewalls. I'm in a what is this, a 17-story building? We have a firewall on every floor. And so, and that's what happens internally. You want that security. You don't want people getting into your stuff. But from a data availability perspective, we needed our people not to get frustrated using Qlik, not to have any slowness using Qlik. And it's not Qlik's fault. It's our own internal sizing and whatnot. And we did our best. But every time we needed an updated version of Qlik on-prem, we'd bring a third-party vendor in to apply that update. And one time it took us down for a few hours. Not Qlik's fault. It was an error on the third-party vendor's part. But we don't have those costs anymore. And when things come out, and we've been on it, going on 2 years now, there has not been a single problem that's been caused by an update with Qlik. But Qlik, the cloud, always has new stuff. I went in there yesterday in the admin interface, and they added announcements. I don't know if you've seen that yet, Kurt, but as an admin, I can now make my own announcement down in the right-hand corner when people come in that they have to see. And I think that was a great addition. And these things just spring up, and they're all good.
Don't quote me, but I believe I heard through the grapevine that was a recommendation from a customer that said it would be great is if we create something as a developer, the admin of this, we could let people know that that's there. And
so
the rumor I heard was kind of like, great. That is a great idea. So
I submitted that idea, but I'm thinking more than just me submitted. I honestly did right when we went to the cloud, because we were rolling things out, and I was having to send emails to people that I would include our entire marketing distribution list, and then my boss would be like, we didn't need to send it to those people or this, and then you miss this vice president or you miss that vice president. And so I had said at the time, I'm like, it'd be great if I could do this. And I don't know if I submitted it, but I told my rep it'd be great. So then I go on yesterday, and it's like, it's there.
And it's there.
It's
amazing.
And
that's kind of the beauty of the cloud thing. They're able to easily push things out. We're listening to our customers about ideas that they have, right? Always have an idea. You want to execute it right away, but it's like, what does this affect? How do we do this? How do we safeguard things? All that's being planned out. But then so many different ideas have come to fruition because of the customer suggesting things. And you guys use it every day, right?
Yeah.
That's key to listen to customers and do that.
But I will, like I stated earlier, we haven't had a problem with one I was concerned with. So you're just going to keep adding things to Qlik. And one day I'm going to come in and you've added some new little code and Qlik's not going to work. Zero of that, and nothing but good things coming through. So I do want to commend them for a proper change management process.
That's great to hear. So you made the shift to Qlik Cloud. You saw, usage go up right away, which was awesome. Moving to new things, challenging, right? It can be fear of change. It can be fear of change. How did you drive adoption on this newer platform? How did you set that up to make sure that people understood it and were successful as they adopted this?
Well, we didn't force them. We still have Qlik on-prem. If anything were to happen with Qlik Cloud, the on-prem dashboards are still reloading. They actually supply the QVDs that are sent up to the cloud with Qlik data transfer. So we didn't force them. We didn't say, you've got to use the cloud. I migrated all of the dashboards we had existing. And when they come through, they look and work exactly the way they did in on-prem. So the transition was not difficult. And when I started adding new tools and features, and one of the silliest things is I added picture icons, which were more descriptive of what each dashboard was, it started getting used more and more. We did not force them. In fact, if they want to use the old on-prem things right now, they still could. Our message to them was, we are doing no new development in the on-prem dashboards. All new development is done in the cloud, and when you get there for the first time, it's going to almost work exactly the way that it works now on-prem. So they just found more resources better. I told them, when you go over to the new system, the dashboard's going to look, feel, work exactly the same, but you won't have to clear your cookies anymore. And I'm here to tell you, how far into it now? A couple years, nobody's complained about a single cookie needed. When somebody get a hold of me with a Qlik problem, I'd say, did you clear your cookies? No more. So that's how we moved them. We didn't force the issue. Qlik Cloud is just better, faster, more options. It was a better interface. They went over. They never wanted to go back to the old interface.
So now I know we'd talked before. You've played around with Power BI, right?
Mm-hmm.
All that.
I just hired a Power BI person.
So
yeah.
I was gonna. That's
and they are
that,
floored. I taught this gal. She's great. I taught this gal in 2 weeks how to use Qlik or how to develop in Qlik because she's coming from Power BI. So the transition is actually simpler. I think you and I have talked about it. Set analysis versus DAX expressions. There's no comparison when you're trying to teach someone, and we've branched out into other teams in the marketing department. I have 4 people now that are developing dashboards for their team because it's simple to show them how to do set analysis. Simple. The interface is just much simpler and more powerful. She came over and she's just super excited and is just very surprised at all the functionality and like I said earlier, the limitations that she experienced in Power BI, they don't exist in Qlik. The limitation is more about how well you code a Qlik dashboard rather than whether you can fit it in. I hire a Power BI person that knew nothing about Qlik, and she's ready to go get certified. She doesn't want to use Power BI. The main reason that we were still using some Power BI stuff in this company was because we had a user-based limitation on Qlik. And with this capacity-based switch, that's why we're going out to the GMs and the MPs. And I'll bet you next year, if you and I talk again, we will have doubled our users again, because I can see us going out to finance. I can see us going out to HR. I can see us adding all of the departments in the building to Qlik now that there's no constraint based on how many users.
That's amazing.
So part of the reason that we're increasing usage and we're increasing users is we've been doing some really good training courses here, giving them some advanced tips, some basic tips. We onboard every new employee. That's an important, if you're listening to this, it is important to give a little bit of training so they know the intricacies about how your apps are created. Like ours, we have date selectors for period 1 and period 2. We need to show them how to use that kind of stuff. Once they get going, there's very little questions, and it's really an hour with myself or someone else on my team, and they're good to use Qlik for good.
That's amazing. So what's the future hold? You've moved to capacity, right? There's some awesome features within that. You mentioned Qlik Answers. Kind of what's the future
AI.
hold for where you're trying to take AutoNation and the use of some of these new AI features?
Well, so we've already started using some of the features like hidden insights. We put those now. We're using tabular reporting now a lot. I have now converted 4 manually prepared daily spreadsheets to tabular reporting. And inside of that tabular reporting, we are including hidden insights. So they get the report attached to it, and then they in the body of the email they get a hidden insight. And we're doing a few things to make that happen, but we couldn't do it without Qlik. And so the biggest thing that we're adding right now is automation and AI. And with answers, we have a bunch of unstructured data. So we're looking forward to having answers in there. An example is, as a single dealership, it's easy to monitor what incentives are available for your customers. As a dealership with dealers across the country in different markets and different regions, incentives are different by region. Chevy might give $1,000 off in the Midwest, but not in the Southeast. And so we get these sheets that are just PDFs, and they go into a folder, and then they send them out to the store, and they know what the incentives are, and then we try to market them as well as we can. But now we're bringing them into a folder, and Qlik Answers is going to query that folder for that store and list all the available things, and it just automatically every day and send it to them. And so that's one way we're getting ready to use answers. But the big thing for us, I think even bigger than AI right now, is automation, tabular reporting. We're also finding that a lot of our people are taking Qlik dashboards, taking screenshots, and creating PowerPoints every week, every month, and we've replaced 2 of those now so far. So as I just said, we added someone to the team. We're going to full steam ahead. Our number one project is automation. We taking the manual task of gathering and collating data away from the people that need to analyze it. The system will do that for you. It will put it in your inbox. You can go and grab it and look at it. They meet with brands, so they might meet with Audi next week, and they need the Audi PowerPoint already pre-done. We put AI in there and everything from Hidden Insights. And so they just go into a folder and they grab the Audi PowerPoint and they go to their meeting. They didn't have to produce any of it. And it replicates exactly what they were doing before. So there was no, change. They're like, wow, automatically every day there's a new one for every brand.
Right. Spend your time analyzing what you need to,
yeah.
reporting what you need to, instead of preparing
Yes.
the things to that
Yes.
point. Because
Yes.
now you can actually go use that information and make decisions and drive action off of those decisions, rather than hours
more rapidly
getting to the point, and then you're exhausted. You're too exhausted to make the decision.
We've done all this SQL, querying, and you've done all this to bring it into the file and create your whatever, or you go get the screenshots and put them in, and then you're exhausted, and now you've got to read it all and determine whether AI is right or whether there's some something hidden here I'm not seeing, or you're just not going to be fresh at it. This has made our analysts better. We're already seeing it.
Excellent. So last question, we met at Qlik Connect last year. Well, we met prepping for Qlik Connect last year, but why do you love going to Qlik Connect? What did you get out of last year's Qlik Connect? What are you hoping to get out of this year's?
Well, there's a few things. Mainly, it's really cool to connect with others in my field to see what they're doing. I recall I met a guy who worked for an orange orchard, and it said it on his lanyard. And I said, what in the world would an orange orchard need Qlik for? And he just blew my mind. We think of GMO, genetically modified organics, and he told me all about DMO, data modified organics. And what they do is they take soil levels from every part of their farm, and they take how much rain each tree got, and how, all these different measurements, and they put it into Qlik to determine what works best. They've got, I think you said, a 2,000-acre farm. So one side of the farm might need more of this nutrient than the other side of the farm. And, so they get right down into the granular, every little piece of soil. But then they can step back and look at the overall farm. And from what he told me, what they do is they use data to help it grow better. And so that, that was a really cool meeting. The vendor exposition hall, you get to learn about all the different third-party plugins. There's some that we use, and I'll go to their booth and learn about new things that I didn't know they had. And then I shouldn't make this last, but the sessions. I've learned so much at the sessions. When I came back from my first Qlik Connect with AutoNation is when we moved to the cloud. And they immediately said, you're going every year, because every year I come back with something new. I came back this year with tabular reporting, and now we're automating everything. So, my ticket's been paid. It was well worth going to take and leave the place, and within 6 months have a 300% increase in usage. Yeah, they'll pay for me to go every year. In fact, it looks like our whole team's going this year, so we're going to have about 15 people.
That's amazing. That is excellent. So there's the commercial right there for Qlik Connect.
I have, on our marketing analytics team, I have analysts, I have developers like me, and I have engineers who procure the data through Snowflake and SQL Server. And there is something for everyone at Qlik. There are sessions for engineers, there are sessions for analysts, and there are sessions for developers. These engineers need to understand some of the cool functionality that exists within Qlik loading. I mean, right now they're kind of still using, some of the SQL-based things, and Snowflake's got some great tools too, but we're going to expand their horizons when they see all the things that are available to engineers. Same thing for the analysts. There are a few sessions, not just to show you how to use Qlik, but to show you why to use Qlik and what to look for while you're using Qlik. Here's why you should use it. And that's what each Qlik Connect has been every year.
Yep. Excellent. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for joining me this morning, taking time to share a little bit more of your story and AutoNation's story. Really appreciate you joining me today.
Oh, of course. No, it's always fun talking to you, Kurt, and I'll see you in April.